Welcome on this bright, frosty, clear, sunny morning to today's event, which Mary will say more about. That's rather a nice little dance. You're the tops. You can settle yourself into your seat, maybe have a little wriggle. We'll have some moments of silence. Then I'm going to read you a blessing by John O'Donoghue. You may want to close your eyes or gaze softly at our beautiful centrepiece and the candle. A blessing. Blessed be the longing that brought you here, and that quickens your soul with wonder. May you have the courage to befriend your eternal longing, and may you enjoy the critical and creative companionship of the question, who am I? And may it brighten your longing. May a secret providence guide your thought and shelter your feelings. And may you inhabit your life with the same sureness with which your body belongs in the world. May the sense of something absent enlarge your life, and may your soul be as free as the ever-new waves of the sea. May you succumb to the danger of growth, and may you live in the neighbourhood of wonder. May you belong to love with the wildness of dance, and may you know that you are ever embraced in the kind circle of the divine. A blessing. Blessed be the longing that brought you here, and that quickens your soul with wonder. May you have the courage to befriend your eternal longing, and may you enjoy the critical and creative companionship of the question, who am I? And may it brighten your longing. May a secret providence guide your thought and shelter your feelings. And may your mind inhabit your life with the same sureness with which your body belongs to the world. May the sense of something absent enlarge your life, and may your soul be as free as the ever-new waves of the sea. May you succumb to the danger of growth, and may you live in the neighbourhood of wonder. May you belong to love with the wildness of dance, and may you know that you are ever embraced in the kind circle of the divine.
Thank you. That is one blessing. Is it the danger of growth? And wonder. Excellent. So welcome everyone. And today we have created a focus of using our imagination and thinking forward and envisioning what could be. And staying as out of the box as possible. We'll see how we get on. We had a session with Daniel this morning and this afternoon This evening, the Sacred Dance Group has welcomed anyone who cares to join. You don't have to be a trained dancer. You don't ever have to have done any circle dance before, but you are welcome to join at 7:30 in the hall this evening. Tomorrow we'll look into education and have some quiet time in the afternoon for a nature mandala. And Thursday there's a new addition to our schedule. Many of us will be wanting to do garden projects at Kalern or the park, but if for some reason that's not for you, Barbara's willing to do some singing in the hall from 10 to 11. So do come for that if you're not going to be outside. And we also added a meeting for parents in the afternoon on Thursday. I'm not sure that any of the family people are here just now, but we are making it plain that there's a sunshine meeting for them. That's probably enough of the overview for today. I'm going to introduce Daniel, who spent time here in the community in the 90s when he was working on his PhD. I think it was about education and living education and families and community. He then became involved with the community for about a decade or so, running Living Roots, which brought us, took over the semester program we had and organized the semester program from the United States here, but also offered undergraduate semester programs in many other eco-villages around the world, Oroville, Israel, Costa Rica, Peru. It was a really cutting-edge program at its time, and then of course other universities started copying and doing it themselves, so we no longer have a semester program. However, it was lovely, and it's brought really good people here and really good energy. Since then, he's been involved with, he came back here and worked with the education group here for a while, just after COVID, and is working with intentional communities worldwide, very linked into the Global Ecovillage Network movement, very linked into the Gaia education movement, and is going to help us think out of the box into the future. How could it look? What can we give? Let's find out. Daniel.
Thank you. Thank you, Mari. Thank you, Sue. That was a beautiful poem. Blessed be our longing. I think that could actually be the title. Blessed be our longing. We might come back to that. Thank you all for coming. I've been looking forward to this for weeks. Show of hands, I'm just curious how we're doing today. So I'm doing great, I'm okay, I'm not sure why I'm here. Looks good. Okay, I don't see any down here. Okay, if anyone is like that, let us know and we'll see how we can support you. Great, let me tell you sort of where I'm hoping to go. Oh, I forgot, I'm not actually doing the slides. So Thomas, do this and see how this works. So we have 4 hours, and this morning, what I want to do is talk a little bit about how change happens, and then some of the roadblocks to imagination, because it's actually very, very hard. And then I want to do some exercises, a wild design exercise, and a guided visualization, and then we'll have some small and large group sharing. And this afternoon, we'll start with a group game. I'll tell a little bit more of my personal story, and then we'll do small group sharing, and then I'm hoping to do a fishbowl conversation that'll make more sense as we go along this morning, and a large group sharing. That may or may not make sense to you, but hopefully it will as we go along. I want to start actually with a little story about one of my daughters. I have 2 daughters, Pema and Simone. Many of you know them. This is a picture of them when they were kids, and then this is a picture of them more recently. And so Pema did her high school, actually 4 years of high school in Oroville. It was an amazing experience for her. And she's now a junior at the Warren Wilson College in North Carolina, a small liberal arts school. And I was recently in Massachusetts, and she came up to visit for a week. So we were hanging out, and one afternoon, she puts on her coat, she says, "Papa, I'm going out. I'm gonna go look for roadkill." I'm like, "What? Roadkill?" All right. So she goes out. 40 minutes later, she comes back with a mink. Like a little rodent. I've never seen a dead mink on the road before. She just went out and found it. And I said, "That's amazing. Like, what are you gonna do with it?" And she said, "I'm gonna skin it." So trigger warning is a little picture of a semi-skinned mink. It's okay, it's actually very beautiful. So Pamela sat with this mink, and she said, Papa, there are people who can do this in 30 seconds. She took 3 hours. And she took 3 hours because it was a sacred event for her. It was reverent. She was honoring this being. And it was an incredible privilege to witness her and watch her with this mink. And she was really honoring its life, even though it may not be in the body anymore. And I just felt so proud and blessed to be there. And I had the thought that in some ways, Findhorn has also been skinned in a way, skinned alive over the last 5 years. COVID, Brexit, redundancies, arson, the foundation closing, many of our assumptions, our core identities, they've been sort of stripped away, right? But the point is not that there's something dead. It's actually the opposite. That what is at the core of that stripping away is still alive, maybe alive more than ever. And maybe a better image would have been a lobster or a snake that kind of sheds its skin, right? And maybe that's where we are now. Maybe where Findhorn is today is too big for its previous skin. And maybe that's what these 5 years have been about, is making room for what's possible, making room for what's next. So, so the big question is, what new form is our essence wanting to take, longing to manifest? And really, that comes back to the longing that Sue talked about. What is that longing in each of us? So hopefully we'll be able to touch a little of that today. So I want to talk a little bit about how this can happen. And so some of you may be familiar with this. It's called the amoeba model of social change. It was developed by Alan Atkinson, inspired partly by Robert Gilman, who many of us know has been very involved with Findhorn over the years. So it has a connection here. This is a picture of an amoeba. Amoebas are fairly simple creatures, and what they do is they go around looking for food, and the way they find food is they send out what they call pseudopods. Pseudopod, fake foot. Okay, so that's a pseudopod in the upper right. And when it finds food, it kind of just eats it and brings it in, right? And so there are different kind of roles or different things that happen in here that I think are analogous to how change happens with people too. So, for our purposes, the resource, the thing that we're going for, I'm going to call the news story, right? It's sort of what Findhorn has always been about. And by news story, we can all have our own ways of looking at it. I would say it is that desire to manifest divinity in the material world. Manifesting our interbeingness, our potential, yeah. And so this is what we're heading for. And so in the amoeba, okay, Thomas, right at the end, those are the pioneers, right? Those are the people. I'm gonna go into the unknown. I'm gonna try to find this resource. And of course, Findhorn has been a pioneer over the days, right? And I had a whole bunch of slides talking about this, but I'm not going to do that. You all know the story, right? There's been millions inspired. Findhorn is really a living laboratory for many things. It's a seedbed for all these new organizations and ideas. It's had global reach, 60 plus years of resiliency, often in difficult times. And there's been other pioneers. We know many of them, or knew many of them. Joanna Macy comes to mind with the work that reconnects. Ecovillages, other spiritual communities, like Oroville, Tamara, Damanhur. There's the rights of nature movements, regenerative and solidarity economics, indigenous movements like Land Back. So that's a really, really important role. And then there's sort of the noisy middle, the mainstream, the people who are just sort of like they're like, okay, what happens, I'll just sort of go with the flow, right? This is most governments, big corporations, sort of the average middle-class consumer. And then there's the supporter. Now, in the model, if you know the model, I've actually condensed some of these just to make it simpler. But the supporter we could also think of as like the change agent or the transformer or maybe the bridge builder, right? And they help resource, amplify, connect, legitimize really what the pioneer is doing. Sometimes the pioneer is seen as a little crazy. And so it's often the supporter who say, no, it's not that crazy, it's actually really important. Yeah. And so this, you might think of like transition town movements as supporters. I mean, Rob Hopkins is a pioneer, but transition towns are saying, hey, that's a great idea, let's actually do that, right? Philanthropic impact investors, faith-based climate and justice alliances, media, educators, storytellers of regenerative futures. These would all be considered supporters. People who are trying to bridge the messy middle with the pioneers. And then there's the iconoclasts, and this is also a collection of different categories. The reactionary, the curmudgeon, the laggard. There's lots of different reasons why people might be out here, but often they're going somewhere else, right? Sometimes in the opposite direction. And so in the larger society, in the global picture, this might be the fossil fuel industrial complex, or Trump and his ilk, right? They're like, no, we're going this way, away from where we're trying to head. And then finally, there are the wounded, ones who are impacted, that are in grief, that are suffering. On the global scene, this is victims of war, climate disasters, indigenous communities in sacrifice zones, workers trapped in extractive systems, and also youth and adults too that suffer with climate anxiety and despair. So I want to present this as a framework, and we'll come back to this afternoon as well. But a couple things to point out is that one, these roles aren't linear, they're not fixed. They're fluid and evolving. So a supporter might get inspired and decide to become a pioneer. Someone might heal and want to get involved, right? So there's lots of ways that this shifts. So it's not a fixed thing. Another thing to note is that if you want change, it's probably best to really focus on the pioneers and the supporters. It doesn't do a lot of good to try to convince the skeptics right away, at least, right? So, and there has to usually be a critical mass of pioneers and supporters to actually make that change happen. So that's also something we're going to look at today. Okay. All right. So today is about envisioning our new story. But it actually turns out that envisioning is really, really hard. For a long time, I was running these workshops on digital storytelling, and I was really trying to help people tell stories from a better future. And what I found was it's really, really hard. It's like pulling teeth to imagine into a future that could be better. And so I want to talk just for a minute or two about why is that so? So, there's a lot of reasons. One is apocalypse stories, they're easy to imagine, right? It's almost lazy to imagine apocalypse stories. I mean, you throw an asteroid at the planet, you get a nuclear war or a zombie outbreak, and you kind of can play it out. There's drama, it's a bit nihilistic, and it also relieves us from responsibility. Like if an asteroid hits the planet, like, whoa, what am I going to do? It's like you just try to survive. There's also this thing called capitalist realism. This is Mark Fisher. And this is the belief that capitalism is really the only possibility, right? And we kind of grew up in this system, that growth is necessary, that scarcity is real, that human nature is selfish. Money has the primary value. And alternatives often will seem naive, utopian, right? And it's to the point where he has this line that for most people on the planet, it's easier for them to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism. or a more beautiful world, right? And I imagine most of us hear that and say, yeah, I can feel how that's a little true. That's a problem, right? And my personal sense is that more than climate change, more than the poly crisis, more than growing fascism around the world, I believe that the core crisis that humanity is facing right now is a crisis of imagination. Humanity isn't able to imagine what it can become. There's a line by Peter Drucker, I think it was, who said, you can only change what you can measure. Maybe. I would go further and say we can only become what we can imagine. So what can we imagine? A couple other reasons. Another reason why it's hard to imagine is that the systems are collapsing, right? Climate change, political polarization, ecological collapse, AI anxiety. All this is leading to a lot of fear, fragility, trauma, and it's hard to step out of that. When we're sort of in survival mode, the idea to think ahead almost seems absurd. I did a 2-hour workshop with a class recently, a creative writing class, and I did a visualization about the more beautiful future. And some of the students, a few, were actually triggered. They were like, wow, you asking me to imagine a better future? All this stuff comes up of like what's going wrong. So it's really, really hard. And also apocalyptic stories. Oh, I also wanted to say that, so the costs of the old story are often visible, right? There's sweatshops, there's animal suffering, there's pollution in sacrifice zones, and also climate impacts in the global south. So it may be if these things were right in our face, we would have more motivation and incentive to imagine something different, but they're often outside our view, so we don't see them. And then also, apocalyptic stories are often very individualistic, right? Would I survive? What would I do? But the news story narratives are collective. How would we organize? How would we heal the planet? How would we create community? And this is why Findhorn has always been powerful, because it's always been about imagining, about really visualizing positive futures for humanity and the planet, right? And I think it's done pretty well. But what if this is only the beginning? What if everything that Findhorn has created is now the foundation for something new, something even bigger? So I'm going to do a guided visualization, but because that's so hard, I want to start with a warm-up exercise to just sort of exercise our imagination muscles a little bit. And so this is called a wild design exercise. I don't know if any of you have done it. It's done in different ways. I learned it in a permaculture class many, many years ago. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show various features, activities, and places at Findhorn, and we're going to combine them in wild ways. Okay, some of them won't make sense, some may be obvious, and some may lead to some creative ideas. So let's try this. So it's not including everything, but it's a good collection. So someone just shout out a number from 1 to 20.
13.
Okay. Rewilding. Another number from 1 to 20.
6.
Rewilding community gatherings. And another one.
9.
9. In the labyrinth in the dunes. Okay, so we're going to rewild during our community gatherings, and we're going to have those in the labyrinth in the dunes. Okay, well that's interesting. I guess I don't know how many of us would fit in there, but I can imagine. Well, does anyone have an idea of what that could look like? It's hard, isn't it?
We run up wall.
Yeah.
And there could be collectively generated inspirations to inspire questions that we could then walk into the labyrinth with, possibly following an experiential thing in the hinterland, and which would in itself inspire those questions, which we would take into the labyrinth, coming out, and then we could do the circle dance around the labyrinth, and then we'd have to finish the artists to
That's amazing and beautiful. We're also getting to know who has a really good imagination. All right, 3 more numbers from 1 to 20.
17.
17, yes. Another one? What, 1? Okay, good. And? I'm sorry, 10? Okay, so we're gonna upcycle at Annie's cocktail bar. Well, in the light of the Findhorn Sanctuary. Okay, that's Annie. Where's Annie? Would you be willing to do that? Where's Annie?
Here's the mic. Mari,
Yeah, we could take the mic around.
If I got it right, we're looking at how we might upcycle during Annie's cocktail bar, which is going to be held in the sanctuary.
The New Year's Eve party?
That's not on. Oh, New Year's Eve party.
The warm-up for the...
Midnight meditation after the New Year's Eve, for the New Year's Eve party. We'll have, but Annie would have to be right by the peacekeeping bench, I think, and then we would go into the light of Findhorn meditation, and then we would come back out and party by the peacekeeping bench.
Sounds good. Wonderful. Thanks, Mark. Let's do one more, and then we're going to break into small groups. So 3 more numbers.
6.
6. Yep.
8.
6, 8, and
17.
17. Okay, so we got organic gardens while ecstatically dancing in the pottery studio. Who's got something? Yes.
I'm sorry, but I just like the last one. It is a cocktail.
Yes.
That for me, as a word, is very significant for community.
Go on.
We might have to get the mic, so you hold on.
She said cocktail is a very significant word for the community, and I'm very curious now.
Okay, if anybody's watched James Bond films, you'll know that there's a kind of cocktail mix that he loves. And for me, cocktail is where there's lots of ingredients that are put together that actually finesse themselves and come out in something drinkable.
Yeah.
So that just entered, that just came to me, and I just wanted to pick that up.
Right. And maybe Findhorn has been shaken, but now we're just
Shaken,
going to
so
stir.
it's that stir. Exactly. That's where I was going to, shaken and that stir.
Do we have someone who would like to say how we might incorporate organic gardens in... Wait, where were we? Organic gardens while ecstatically dancing in the pottery studio.
Well, we could start with dancing. In the
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm going to run the mic both to Barbara and to Judith.
Well, we produce really organically shaped huge pots which come about while dancing in the pottery studio while the imagination runs wild, and then we fire them and then we put them out in the garden and they become wonderful features.
Beautiful.
Judith? That's fine. That's enough. Yeah, it's enough.
I was thinking, what are those chia pets? we could make chia pets in the form of dancing people, and then we can put the chia on them so they become all furry with the chia. You know what I'm talking about? That's something in Britain? No. Okay, I'll have to find. All right, later I'll find a picture of a chia pet and I'll show you. Okay, so what I'd like to do is break into groups. It doesn't really matter, 2, 3, 4, whatever's around you. And let's take a few minutes. We might even take 7 or 10 minutes and see how it goes. And the idea is just play with it. You can do random numbers and just see what comes up, or you can just say, hey, I think I see something here, okay? And then when we come back, what we'll do is we'll just popcorn out some of the best ideas. Like, just see like, oh, this one actually is pretty cool, okay? Or kind of funny, or actually kind of makes sense, okay? Does that make sense? All right, go for it. And the mother, Mira Alfalfa, who was one of the founders of Oroville, someone once asked her, it's like, so how will Oroville be organized? Like, how is it going to work? And she said, well, the best I can share that is by saying it'll be a divine anarchy. Divine anarchy. Now, anarchy is one of those words that has a lot of baggage, right? A lot of people think chaos or violence. Maybe anarchism would be better because it ties back to the original idea, which is we are all sovereign. We are all autonomous. We are all independent in ourselves, and we get to relate in ways, or we hopefully can get to relate in ways that work that are mutually beneficial. And it's all done within that context that we are here to manifest divinity in the material world, right? To me, that is the core experiment of Oroville. I wasn't going to share about this, so I won't say much, but you know, Oroville is very much struggling. There's this sort of slow motion government takeover happening in Oroville. And so that idea of divine anarchy is being constrained. And there are people here who could speak a lot to that it feels like that experiment of like, hey, let's all get together and try to figure out this new world. Many people aren't able to do that. And I find it fascinating that whereas it's sort of gone underground in Oroville, it's sort of popped up here at Findhorn. Because ultimately there's no government telling us what we can and can't do. We are free, right? We can do anything we want. And I think that's an amazing thing. And the question is, are we going to take that by the reins? Are we going to go for that brass or gold ring? Are we actually going to say, like, what would that really look like here? But I wanted to bring that up because that's meaningful to me. To me, that is the core experiment. And I think something in what was just shared made me also remember that, I mean, that's kind of what the universe does, right? The whole universe is a divine anarchy. Everything is just sort of doing what it's doing in its best way, thinking that it's what it needs to do. And in that, things emerge, things happen, things evolve. So, thank you for bringing that up. Let's continue. So what I want to do, Thomas, is a guided visualization. And, I mean, the purpose is really to help us dream into what's possible, and also maybe our potential role in that future, whatever shape that takes, okay? And so what I want to do is I'm going to set the scene a little bit, and then I'm going to offer a series of prompts. And there'll actually be sort of collection of prompts. So if you feel like, oh, he's going too fast, I'm going to say a couple things that are sort of together and see if any of those spark, and then I'll give a little bit of time to sort of go into it. So, yeah, and I recognize that visualizations work for some and they don't work for others. So there's no right or wrong way to do this. There's no should. It may be easy, it may be challenging. I mean, if nothing arises, at least see if you can notice where you would want something to arise. Or like, oh, that's something that I feel interested in, but nothing's really showing up. And also, it's possible that doubts or grief or old stories surface. And if that happens, just acknowledge them. See them as clouds. Like, okay, that's there too, right? You may want a pen, paper nearby if you want to jot something, but I really encourage you to try to stay in the visualization as much as you can. But if you want to jot something for fear that you might forget it.
There is spare pens and paper over on the table, if anyone...
Raise your hand if you'd like anyone to get something and bring it to you, or you got what you need. Okay. Thomas, and if it's helpful, we can imagine, who knows what this is? Yes, it's Felix Felicis, which for the Harry Potter fans here know is also called liquid luck. And the idea is you drink it and then you have immense luck for a period of time. But for us, I want us to imagine, instead of a few hours, that we've all ingested this and it lasts for years, for decades. Anything we attempt succeeds, okay? That's amazing. We can also rest in the knowledge that the angel of Findhorn is alive and well. The angel of Findhorn is destined to manifest. This really, we're only here kind of playing around, right? Where we can help make it faster or slower or something, but it's destined to. So maybe if we relax, maybe that's when, and that trust, maybe that's when things will emerge as well. Okay, so are we ready? Maybe we can put the lights down a little bit. Don't fall asleep. I was going to do this in the afternoon, and then I thought, no, it's probably better in the morning. And I don't know how long it'll take, but I want to take it fairly slowly. And even then, people might feel like there's not enough time or something. So really, things may pop up, they may not. It's all okay, all right? All right, so let's begin. I invite you to close your eyes. Take a few slow breaths. Release any tension in your body. Move around if you need. And as you settle in, I invite you to gently bring Findhorn into your mind, your heart, your soul. Not as an organization or a set of buildings, but as a being, a field, a story that's been unfolding for more than 60 years. And let yourself remember or sense into its humble beginnings in a caravan, the original spark that gave rise to this place. Listening to and following our inner guidance, co-creating with nature intelligences, manifesting our potential as love in action. Feel Findhorn as a pioneer, a living question at the crossroads between human and the more than human world. Between the old story of separation and ego and the new story of conscious interbeing. Feel the countless stories woven into this land. Meditations in the sanctuaries, workshops that opened hearts, songs sung, dances danced, tears shed, laughter in the dunes, the sense that something new is possible here, perhaps even more possible than elsewhere. And also remember that every vision worth living must weather its seasons. Times of blossoming, times of contraction, times of confusion, of fragmentation, and times of renewal. And feel how Findhorn, like any living being, changes, adapts, stumbles, learns, and regenerates. And despite everything, the upheavals, the losses, the reckonings, something essential remains. A longing to live differently, a devotion to spirit, a belief that community is possible, a trust in guidance, a commitment to be a living experiment. So take a breath and let that essence settle in. Not as nostalgia, but as a living field you can touch right now. Imagine yourself moving through this field forward in time. 5 years, 10 years, perhaps 20. You arrive in a future where Findhorn has evolved, not into a perfect community, but into an alive, purposeful place that is fully realizing its potential. So first, sense how you feel in this future Findhorn. How free do you feel you can be yourself here, your full self? and look around. Allow images to arise if they do. What does the land feel like? The gardens, the dunes, the sanctuaries. How has nature been tended, honored, or restored? Or where are people gathering? Notice what you are doing here. Are you offering something? Your skills, your presence, your creativity? Are you resting, receiving, healing? Are you living here? Or visiting? Or maybe even attuning from afar? What are you doing here? Consider the people around you. How do people support one another? How do they repair relationships when harm happens? How do children grow up here? And elders thrive? How do visitors feel welcomed? And now, widen your attention to the whole community. How is Findhorn being stewarded now? What forms of governance or shared leadership have emerged? How do circles, teams, or councils collaborate? How is transparency practiced? What is the work now? How has Findhorn rediscovered its unique offering to the world? What does listening within, co-creating with nature, and manifesting divinity look like now? How is the Findhorn magic? How is the Findhorn magic expressed in a modern context? And now, from this future, let's look backwards and consider what shifts or realizations helped Findhorn evolve. What old patterns were released? What new agreements or ways of relating took root? What acts of courage, honesty, and humility shaped the transition? What happened? And finally, looking back from this future, gently ask yourself, what was my role? Was it large or small? Was it visible or quiet? Did I step forward or did I step back? Or perhaps did I carry a thread of Findhorn elsewhere to manifest? There's no judgment. See which of these statements most strongly resonates with you, recognizing that most live in all of us to some extent. I felt hurt, exhausted, or overwhelmed, and I needed space. I needed trust and healing before I could move forward. Or I felt cautious or skeptical about change. And I felt protective of what we've already built. Or I was happy to engage as a participant, but not a core member or staff. I was just waiting for our next steps to become clear. And then I encouraged, uplifted, and supported others to help this vision become real. Or I was all in. I felt called to be amongst the new pioneers of Findhorn, even when it asked me to grow and change in significant ways. Be with these statements for a minute and see which calls you, which is alive. Allow them all to exist. All of these responses are valid. All of them honor Findhorn as a living being with many friends, many guardians, many circles of care. And let whatever arises simply be true. Feel it, breathe into it, and notice how it makes you feel. as we come to a close, let's offer gratitude for what Findhorn has been, for the people who tended it, for the land that holds so much story, and for the possibility, still alive, of its next chapter. Feel that gratitude settle in your chest. And as we return to the present, bring with you a thread of the future you touched. Not as pressure, but as a compass. A way of knowing. What is mine to do? How close am I to this story? What form does my love for Findhorn wish to take? Take another deep breath. You might wiggle your fingers and toes, and when you're ready, in your own time, you can come back into the room and open your eyes. Wonderful. Thank you for going on that journey. So, so I have the great privilege of sharing a little bit of my story. And actually there's two short videos that I made. This is something called digital storytelling, which I'll talk more about in a little bit. But this is one I made a number of years ago, actually as I was moving to Oroville, this community in South India. I didn't end up living there, but this is that. So it's just a couple minutes, and I think I'd start here to give you a little background of who I am, and then I'll go on from there. Okay, go ahead.
Lights?
Good.
Sorry. Lights down, please.
Oh, that's not, yeah, that's different anyway. There was a request for lights, if possible. Actually, lights could go down for now for a while. How many here have ever been to Oroville? Wow, that's quite a few. Amazing.
How did I get here? Growing up, I often felt like a stranger in a strange land, suburban Delaware. There were no front porches, and neighbors only came out to mow their perfect lawns. I was the only Jew in my school, and one December, my teacher helped classmates string popcorn and make Christmas ornaments, while I sat in a corner with a mimeograph of a Star of David and some broken crayons. Everything changed my sophomore year at Cornell. I taught in an after-school program. I learned to meditate and became a vegetarian. I discovered psychedelics. One night, while watching Star Trek reruns with friends, I said, you know what? I want to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations. I wanted to find utopia. I switched my major from electrical engineering to child psychology, and dreamed of creating a community school where everyone belongs. 4 years later, while pursuing field research for my doctoral thesis on children and education within contemporary intentional communities, I somehow convinced my girlfriend to join me on a tie-dyed odyssey to visit 30 communes in 9 months. Everywhere we went, kids learned real-life skills, called parents by their first names, and had actual friendships with grown-ups. I met other wandering Jews searching for community outside the temple, and we had long conversations about everything from parenting to permaculture to polyamory. An odd feeling snuck up on me. Maybe it was while helping clean after a group dinner, or in a community meeting. My heart felt full in a new way. Community life, initially so foreign, now felt intimate, ancient yet ever-present. Like I was a cell in a body. Like a crew member on the Starship Enterprise, boldly going where no one has gone before. We later moved to a New Age community in Scotland. Then we raised 2 daughters at Sirius Community in Western Massachusetts. I started a nonprofit which ran study abroad programs in ecovillages, and then served as president of the global Ecovillage network. And now we live in Oroville in South India, where 3,000 members from 60 countries are trying to build human unity and a city the earth needs. It's a bold and strange new world for sure, but I am no longer a stranger.
And it was literally like 5 months after we moved to Oroville that I got the call to become the Director of Education here. And I arrived here, it was September 1st, 2022, which was literally, to the day, 30 years from when I first arrived with Monique. How many of you were here back in '92? Yeah, so a lot of you remember Monique. We can just kind of go through these fairly quickly. I worked in the kitchen. Hannah's here. We used to battle with baguettes. We worked a lot with the teenagers. There was a very active teen group then. I took a lot of risks, so I'm right here. And then we came back a lot with our kids. This is Simone when she was a kid, you know, at the Randolph Leap, the Nature Sanctuary. And I even got to perform with Simone here, wearing the same shirt. Ariel. Yeah, keep going. Making candles with Pema. Same shirt. Okay, yeah, so Living Roots. Worked with the University of Massachusetts. We did study abroad programs. A quick story from the early days. It actually built on the foundations of another organization, the Geocommons College here, Bruce Kantner and others. And so in '99, I started Living Roots, and then we inherited a semester program that was already started by a friend, Laurie Gold. Anyone remember Laurie Gold? Oh, wonderful, wonderful person. He was an art professor at Pacific Lutheran University. And so Laurie and I were friends. He had been bringing student groups here for a while, and when I started Living Roots, I'm like, Laurie, it's time, we can collaborate, let's work together. And he was like, actually, you know what, I'm done, I'm gonna retire. Daniel, you take the semester program, take it. And I'm like, what? You know, and I'm like, okay. It was a wonderful gift, because we were a new nonprofit, and suddenly we had what we thought a program that had a history and that we could build on. Well, turns out it really wasn't Laurie's program to give. So this was back in the early days of the college here, Malcolm Hollick, and when we started talking to them, immediately they were like, no, this isn't your program, this is our program. And we're like, what? Oh, okay, you know, and it got into some complicated conversations, and it got weird. At one point, someone from the college was actually traveling around the US to colleges promoting the very same program, but it had a different name and it had a different write-up, and it was confusing people left and right. They're like, isn't this the same program that Living Roots is doing? What are you guys doing? And so at some point I said, look, this is crazy. We have to stop talking about who owns the program. It's clear that we need each other, right? We're the sort of the US counterpart, we're attracting the students, and you're doing it on site there. Let's just look at how we can make this relationship work, right? And we did that. As soon as we stopped thinking about who owns the program, we were able to collaborate in a much better way. And literally for the 14 or so years that that program ran, we never solved that problem. We never figured out who owns the program, right? And so I'm not saying that that is alive here. I've heard a couple whispers of things like that, but I would encourage us all to let go of ownership, right? There's a wonderful line in Oroville that has a charter and the sort of their constitution in a way. And the first line says, Oroville belongs to nobody in particular. Oroville belongs to nobody in particular. Oroville belongs to humanity as a whole. But to live in Oroville, one must be a willing servitor of divine consciousness. That's the first line of sort of the charter of Oroville. And I think it applies just as well at Findhorn. There's something else I was going to say about living roots. Give me a second. Yeah. So, yeah, let's go on. I can show you. So Living Roots, we went, and so we came to Findhorn. I'll just show one picture of each of these places. We can just keep going, Thomas, and you can see. So Oroville, many of you have been or seen. And we went to Israel, Kibbutz Lotan, Senegal. We went to some amazing rural villages. Ecocentric EPAC, a permaculture demonstration site in Brazil. Sirius community, where we raised our daughters for years in Western Massachusetts, and lots more that either we went to or we were hoping to go to. Yeah, so it was an amazing time, and then over the years, I was also very involved in the startup of Gaia Education. Some of these folks you remember, Will Keepin in the middle was here just recently, Liz Walker, there's May, Jonathan Dawson, Max Lindiger, Giovanni Hilder. Yeah, this was a bigger group. This was, I believe, Newbold House. And I'm in the back. Mari, is that you next to me back there?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of people you might recognize in this. Keep going. And then it was right here in 2015, I guess it was at the 20th anniversary of GEN, that I was elected president of GEN, and I served for 4 years. That was an amazing time. This was if anyone has a better picture of this, I'd love it. This one's a little bit fuzzy, but this is the fellows, wonderful people in this image, some of whom are no longer with us. But what an amazing group of people. Yeah. Okay. And here we are, right? This looks familiar. And one more. And so then I was at Findhorn, as I said. I was at Oroville for 5 months, the second time, and then I got the job here. And you can see from this back, from my story, that when I got the job of director of education, it felt like my whole life had led to this job. It was my dream job. And I came with lots of excitement and ideas, and it was a very, very challenging time, as we all know. It was just coming out of COVID, Brexit, there was the arson, there was the redundancies, and it was, people were just trying to stretch out. And what happened fairly quickly is I realized that what I was dreaming of was not aligning with the management of the foundation. And especially when Terry came, it was really like, Daniel, your job is to create a workshop center. You need to get the Eckhart Tolles, the Carolyn Maces, the Joanna Macy's, all these big names, get them here, they'll bring their people, and we'll do the workshop center and we'll survive. And I was like, well, maybe, I'm not sure. Because I'm not sure why people would come to the north of Scotland to see people that they could just as easily see in London or New York. They come to the north of Scotland because it's Findhorn, right? Findhorn, it's famous, right? And they want to have that experience. And at that time, as we know, it was very constrained. We didn't have work departments, and there were a lot of good reasons why we couldn't run those programs. But I felt like we were a bit selling our history at that time. It was like people were coming kind of hoping for that magical experience, and it wasn't quite there. And the feeling that I had of the foundation at that time was it was an organization kind of just doing everything it could to survive, which organizations do, right? I can't think of an organization that its first thing isn't to continue. It's life, essentially. The first quality of life is, I think, the desire to continue. Yeah? And so everything, even an organization has that life. So it's not, I don't have any judgment or bad feelings. It's just that it was just carrying on doing what it thought it could do to continue. And I was remembering, it's like, well, if we go back to when the foundation started, yeah, it was started to manage some assets. I think this was one of them, the hall. It was also there to say, like, how do we deal with all these people coming through, right? And then when the education really started, it was to serve the vision of Findhorn of how do we help bring these people into what it is that we're doing, right? And maybe it would have gotten back to that, but when I was here, it wasn't feeling like that at all. So I was like, okay, if that's where this is going, that's not my background, that's not my skill set. And Terry agreed wholeheartedly, and so he at some point asked me to resign. And that was a very, very hard time for me. It was my dream to make this work and to help Findhorn become everything it could be. And so I kind of left with my tail between my legs, but the vision never ended. Yeah, let me see, where am I? So here we are, right? And that was a couple years ago, and I want to share a little bit of like what I was dreaming of then, that it wasn't the right time, and it may or may not be the right time now, but I want to at least share sort of some of the ideas that I was holding, so we can carry on. So, I'm actually writing a book. I never thought I would write a book like this. It's a sci-fi novel, and it's a book about how we get from here to that more beautiful future, which I'm putting in like 2049. And it's actually, there's 3 parts to the book. The first part is sort of telling that story of how we get from here to there. The second part, which might even be a second book, it may end up being 3 books, is a story about a mission to Mars, which goes horribly wrong. And then the third part or book is about what we learned from that. It's a more spiritual book. And I'm actually going to do this thing on Saturday, you're all welcome to, where I'm going to flesh this out. And actually the book starts here, at Findhorn, this moment, right? It's actually, well, I'll get to this in a second, but yeah, so if you want more fleshed out of this idea, come on Saturday. But a lot of the ideas that I'm going to put in that book are ideas that I think could fit at Findhorn. So one idea is doing digital storytelling courses. And so I mentioned this morning that I've done a number of courses on digital storytelling. What is a good story? How do we tell it? And then also helping people put that into a framework of like a YouTube video. A number of people here actually were in some of those. And at least some of the latter ones, I've really been encouraging people to try to tell stories from a more beautiful future. And what I find is it's very, very difficult. And I think it's really important. And so I'll repeat what I said this morning, is that I believe more than climate change, more than the poly-crisis, more than Trump and all this fascism going on, I would say that the core crisis facing humanity is a crisis of imagination. It's a crisis of not being able to imagine into what we might become. And that's what this place is about, to me at least. It's always been a place about cultivating positive visions for humanity and the planet. And so I'm on fire about the idea of Findhorn becoming a place of imagining the future. Thomas. Oh, and this is to remind me and remind us that just something that came out of the morning is that we were doing some of the popcorn and the wild design stuff, and some ideas came out of that, but also out of this afternoon, if there's something that shows up that you would like to share more publicly, Cornelia has set up a page, celebratingoneincrediblefamily.org/envisioning, our new story with dashes, and it's a place where you can add your story or something that you would like to share. I would love to see people kind of put in imaginings of what the future could look like. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, Cornelia, is anything that's good?
Yeah, but you can also find it if you show the home page. Just go on the home page.
Ah,
Most recent.
there we go.
Yeah, that's the post. And you
I'll write something more.
You put it in comments, and then I recollect.
Can you go down?
Okay, thank you. And you can find it on the home page. You click on home.
There you go.
No, top.
No, we're showing you the comments.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
We're telling him to do two different things. Yeah, so there's the comments down there.
That's where you type it in.
And where Cornelia was saying at the top, if you go to the home,
You can find either by looking in search for Daniel or by going to home.
Go down.
So that little bit under most recent stories.
yeah, and there it is.
And there it is.
Oh, and then you go to
It will have a picture soon, as soon as you use one.
So a hearty invitation to start sharing your stories in celebrating one incredible family. All right, so let's continue. Go back to the slideshow. So these are some ideas that I was coming to Findhorn with and that I still feel would be really amazing. So people might have different opinions about this, but virtual worlds are coming, right? I mean, there's been a number of different attempts. I don't think they're very good yet. We could, and a lot of them are being corporatized, they're all about how do we get the most eyeballs and attention. I think we could stake out some territory in the virtual worlds that are about imagination, that are about positive visions for humanity in the future. I had a really hard time just searching for virtual world images that had any kind of sense of organic or community to them. There's a desperate need, I think, if this is happening, for how do we actually connect in that world. So we could actually put Findhorn in the virtual world. We could have virtual tours. We could have people coming to the sanctuary virtually and meditate with us, right? We could do pretty much a lot. I mean, it's very different, but we could approximate things in a virtual world that we could be doing in person. So, it was, 20 years ago? In 2005, I guess it was the 10th anniversary of the Global Ecovillage Network starting here. And I went into Forest, and I went into one of the thrift stores, and I found this game, and I bought it for £5, right? And it was developed by Deepak Chopra and others, and it was way ahead of its time. I mean, this was actually before Facebook started, and it came with this wild device, which, if anyone has seen this, I left it here, and I forgot about it, and it's somewhere, I think, in the park building or whatever, but I was hoping to play with it and see what was possible. But go to the next one. So it was amazingly rendered. And so what happened is you would be in this virtual space and you'd be in like a hot air balloon and you had to like navigate down a valley. And how did you do that? Well, actually, if you go back again, there's this device. You see that there's these three little things. You put them on your fingers. It was a biofeedback machine. And so it was measuring heart rate variability, maybe some other things. And so as you kind of regulated your neural system and as you meditated, you would play the game. It was amazing, right? And it worked. It really worked. I mean, again, 2005. And I thought, wow, okay, now we can go ahead. Let's go one more. So, as an example, well, we could have spaces where maybe we could all be together in this virtual reality wearing this biofeedback machine. We could be in a beautiful place, right? We could be on the North Sea, we could be in a meadow, or we could be in a very difficult place. We could be in a climate catastrophe, we could be in a war zone. And the idea is not only how do we regulate ourselves, but how do we regulate all of us? And to me, that's one of the core potentials of Findhorn. How do we come together in ways that we can harmonize, right? And so this is just one example. This picture is actually a picture of a council of all beings. Some of you may have heard of this. This also came from Joanna Macy and John Seed. Many of us are familiar with Council Circle. A council of all beings is where, instead of speaking from your own heart, you are connecting to some aspect of the non-human world that is important to you, and you do some work around kind of connecting with it, maybe even kind of communing with the deva of that entity, and then you come into this council as that being. So I speak as polar bear, I speak as honeybee, I speak as rainforest, right? And so this is an example of that. And I thought, the next thing, what if we did that virtually? This is not a good picture, I need a better picture. But you get the idea. We could, in a virtual world, we could actually show up as those beings. We could be above the planet, right? We could be anything we want. In fact, I wrote a chapter for this book, exactly that. It's of a council of all beings in the virtual world. And I'm happy to share that with anyone. But I'm gonna work on a better picture. Okay, let's go on. We could even have like the game. Does someone probably recognize when this was? But we could do this virtually too, right? And think of the possibilities of a virtual game of transformation with angels, right? And we could be moving through space and everything. So I think there's a lot of cool possibilities. Keep going.
90-something.
Eye gazing. Many of us have done this in workshops or other things, and it can be very powerful. Just standing in front of someone and just looking in their eyes. So there was a while ago, I was helping facilitate an online program, and I was thinking, oh, it'd be cool to do eye gazing. And I thought, well, how do you do that over Zoom, right? And what I did was I said, look, everyone just pin someone, right? Just pin someone and look at them. Now they may or may not be looking back at you, they may have pinned someone else. And it actually worked really well. It actually did two things that were surprising. One was it kind of lowered any anxiety, because you're like, you know, sometimes it's like, it can be pretty intense doing eye gazing. But you're like, maybe this person isn't looking at me, right? So I can relax a little bit. The other thing is it kind of gave a sense of like, oh, we're kind of looking at the whole group. Because I'm looking at this person who may be looking at another person who may be looking at another person who may be looking at me, right? So it had a really interesting, surprising collective quality to it. But imagine if in our Findhorn virtual world, we created a site where you click a button and suddenly there's someone in front of you. Imagine just looking at someone. It could be anywhere in the world. Anyone could click this and you're just looking at someone for 5 minutes. I would do that. I would do that 5 minutes a day. And then you just sort of thank each other and you go on with your day. Think about what this could mean in terms of connecting us globally. Like, I'm just going to connect with someone. Maybe there's other ways to do this, like I want to connect with someone in this area of the world or something or whatever, but I think just the randomness in it. You know, I remember in the early days of Skype, if those of you remember Skype, it's sort of like vinyl records now, Skype is. And there was a button in the early days that said, Skype me. And it was a setting, you turn that on, and basically you were announcing to the world that anyone could call you. And I thought, oh, I turned it on, and within like 5 minutes, I got a call from like a teenager in Japan, someone who was actually on an oil rig in the North Sea, and a couple others, and I'm like, this is I didn't have time for it, but I thought, wow, it was really interesting. So I just think this is another interesting idea that could be explored. Okay, let's go on. So here's another idea for a week-long program, sort of maybe a newly visioned experience week. And we could call it whatever, but the idea is about entering into a future together, right? What if Findhorn became a place where we collectively created visions for the future? And we kind of talked about them and said, oh, this is one that's getting a lot of energy. Let's see if we can develop that one more. There could be multiple ones, right? But we could also look at how much can we find a future that we can all say yes to, right? And then we invite people into that future for a week or more. So, and we could do different things. We could do despair and empowerment work, right? Because obviously there's a lot of grief in the world, and sometimes that's one of the biggest blocks to imagining the future. I need to actually process what I have now. So we do some of that, and then we do an imagination wormhole. And so if you come on Saturday, we start with this. And so the book actually begins in 2049. And it's in a big virtual universal hall, okay? There's 1 billion people in this universal hall in 2049. And what we're doing is we are recollecting, we are remembering what happened from the mid-20s to 2049. What happened to get us to where we are now? And we're sending those memories back. We're actually going back in time, remembering who we were in 2025, and we're bringing those people toward us in 2049 so that they can remember their future. Maybe that's happening. Maybe we are now receiving our future memories of where we could go. Yeah? So we could do that in a program. Let's go through this imagination wormhole. It could be like a threshold that we cross into the future. Maybe they would even leave a time capsule before they cross that threshold. What were their major fears or the risks or their hopes? And they put it in a time capsule, and at the end of the program, maybe they come back to the present and they look at their time capsule and see what's changed. And we would help all the participants and everyone here at Findhorn to remember our future biographies. This is essentially what I've done in the book. I basically said, what is the best future I can imagine, the most realistic and best future for myself and everyone? And in the book, there's sort of like different aspects of myself. So I've actually created 6 or 7 of future biographies. But if people could kind of think into, what would it be if we all had taken that Felix Felicis, the luck potion from Harry Potter, and we knew that whatever we did, we would succeed at for the rest of our lives? And imagine 20, 25 years in the future. And if we're old enough that we might not imagine ourselves then we also can imagine that we kind of figure out aging a little bit, which is happening, by the way. I was just hearing about that. Go on. And we could have a council of all future beings. I mean, we could do it with other non-human, but we could also say, let's come into a council and we're speaking from our best selves 25 years in the future of what we can imagine. And we can do digital storytelling to help people actually frame some of what they're learning, some of what they're experiencing, and share it with the world. And these can become sort of this collection of stories from the future. And this is one of my favorite things. Imagine, remember the Friday night dinners, the big celebrations at the end of Experience Week? Imagine we did those as future celebrations. That not only the participants, but members of Findhorn, people from the community came in, and we all showed up as our future selves, right? We could wear what we think we might be wearing in 25 years, and we could have a whole biography of what did we do. And we can all be sharing in that way to help enliven this idea of potential futures. I think, is that it, or is there one more? Yeah, and the idea is that we're continued engagement. That the dream, and this is well fleshed out in the book, and I'll share more on Saturday, but that we actually create a system where together we can collectively create our best imagining for the future. And there's many ways that we can do that. But honestly, as I said this morning, I don't think we can become what we can't imagine. And if we don't imagine, there are people, there are corporations, there is a worldview that is imagining the future. And do we want to leave our future to them? Or do we want to create our own? And I think this is a place that could be that pivot point, or a pivot point in the Great Turning, or what I think we could call the Great Transformation. Okay, some big idea. Here's a crazy idea. I mentioned divine anarchy this morning. Now, anarchy is one of those words, again, that has a lot of baggage. When people hear about it, they think of chaos or Molotov cocktails and black hoodies. But really, the original root simply meant no imposed ruler. Okay? Not disorder, but the absence of domination. And of course, divine is a very common word here, but it's also one of those words that has a lot of connotations out there. But we know that it's not woo-woo. It actually means that we're aligned with our deepest potential. And I think that deepest potential is infinite. So divine anarchy is really a community of people that are willing to be governed by their inner guidance, their shared resonance, rather than by fear, control, or hierarchy. Does that sound familiar? I mean, honestly, I've always felt that Findhorn is an experiment in divine anarchy. It's not lawless. It is lawful, but in a deeper way. It's like a mycelial network, or a murmuration of starlings, right? Or a healthy human nervous system. So the idea is we could, I mean, also because, so divine anarchy is, again, maybe not the best term. We could call it field labs for human flourishing, or maybe someone here has a better idea. And it could be done in a number of places. I have people that are interested, I know people that are interested in this at Oroville, Sirius, a number of other communities. Imagine if this was a distributed network of experiments. And the idea, and this is just a, you know, this could all be fleshed out. But what's come to me from the future is we do a 1-year experiment and we raise funds for room and board, basic income, basically kind of what it was like to be a staff of the foundation. And they do that for a year, but we have the minimum required structure because it's anarchy, right? So basically we're telling them, you know what, you can do whatever you want. You are free. And there's freedom and accountability. So the idea is that there is a shared commitment, and their commitment is to realize potential of themselves individually, of the collective, of Findhorn, of humanity, of the planet, to do transformative practices, and to do it all with transparency. And ideally, they would come out of that year with maybe some replicable or even scalable models. Honestly, I think we're all aware that AI is coming. I think it's coming for all of our jobs, and I think that's not a bad thing. I think actually, if we get it right, I mean, we could get it wrong a lot of ways. If we get it right, we could be entering a period of time where we don't have to do anything. We don't have to work in order to survive. And it gives us the opportunity to follow our bliss, follow our passion, right? I mean, I am very privileged, most of us here are very privileged that we've been able to construct our lives to do things that have meaning for us. If we look around the world, that's actually not that common. There are billions of people on the planet just scraping by. They're doing what they're doing in order to put food on the table, in order to survive, right? Imagine if the world could feel safe, could feel secure, if they knew that their basic needs were taken care of. A lot of people say, oh, people would get lazy, they would just be on video games all day. Maybe a couple would. I honestly think it would be an explosion of creativity. It would be a renaissance if we could actually follow our passion. And so the idea is to create a little molecule of that, an experiment of that. And what would happen? I'm curious. It's kind of the experiment in Oroville that's not really happening now, which is why I want to go there and see, could we do something like this there too? So it's a crazy idea maybe, or maybe not.
Daniel?
Yes?
Are you already, are you already taking kind of feedback and questions? Or?
We will in a second. We're almost there. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's totally fine, man.
Okay, and actually what I want to do is, I want to show a short video again, and then we'll get into small groups, and so you can see other people may have the same questions, or they may give you feedback on the question, and then we can do that.
Yeah.
Okay, and actually we're going to do that in a fishbowl.
Totally fine, man.
So I want to end this portion of sharing about myself, and there's one more little video where it's sort of my hopeful vision of the future. So that should be the next thing. Here we go.
Back in the mid-20s, humanity was like a caterpillar dissolving in her cocoon, unaware of what was to come. When climate chaos whacked us upside our head in 26, and it became clear that AI was coming for all our jobs, the masses started to wake up. Dark horse candidates were elected in 28 on utopian platforms, ending fossil fuels by 2040, money out of politics, renewable energy everywhere, and an AI tax to provide for everyone's basic needs. Food, shelter, medical care, transportation, education. But that was only the beginning. We thought our goal was to heal the planet, but it was always to heal ourselves. As we shed our capitalist mindsets of scarcity, exploitation, and separation, when we increasingly didn't have to do anything, we started to remember our oneness and follow our deeper longings. Music, art, poetry, flowed like waterfalls through busted dams. Billions joyfully planted gardens, forests, regenerated entire ecosystems. We created virtual worlds where together we could learn and grow. We could build our Mount Olympus. We could rise in love. And that was the real kicker. You see, we thought love was about close family or finding someone until death do we part, a faithful spouse, a hot lover, a best friend, even a soulmate. Sure, but healing the planet and our individual, collective, and ancestral traumas actually required us to consciously evolve. As we created a more meaningful world where we could feel safe, significant, and free, our inner eyes opened, and we began to really see each other as spiritual beings having human experiences. And that widened our circle of love beyond our partners, friends, and family, to include those who see the world differently, other species, the oceans and rainforests, the entire planet. Now, in 2060, I feel the inklings of an emerging planetary consciousness. I feel Gaia awakening. You know, even back then, I was lucky to have opportunities to help create our caterpillars' imaginal cells, ecovillages, building local food and energy systems, inclusive forms of governance, and most importantly, new stories of how we can live well and lightly together. I knew emerging from our chrysalis was not only possible, it was inevitable. How could have I been so sure? Because everywhere I looked, I saw human butterflies, their wet wings drying in the sun.
Okay. Thank you. Can you raise the... Yep. Here's what I know. We don't know. I mean, so we all know the story of ants and anthills, right? That a single ant, you can't imagine it having much on its mind. It's got a couple of nerve cells strung together for a brain. You look at the anthill, and suddenly there's this intelligence, right? We all know this story. They farm fungi. They send armies off to war with other ants. The question is, can a single ant have any awareness of that collective intelligence? And I think we're similar. I think at best we are dimly aware of what that Gaia is. We can feel it, we can resonate with it, but to understand it at that level, I don't think we're wired, at least in this form. Outside of this form, yes. But in this form, I think there are limitations to how much we can experience that. So to me, it's a mystery. And it's a mystery that I think is part of that divine anarchy. It's like, I think that evolves to the extent that so I was thinking, like, in the future, let's imagine we get to this place where we can all follow our bliss. What does that feel like? Like, let's imagine we are now 25, 30 years in the future, and we've done it. We can all wake up every day, and we can do what it is that we feel called to do, right? That, to me, is the experience of living on an awakened planet. That is us actually becoming neurons in the heart of Gaia. Yeah? And so many of, we're at different levels of where we are in that, but I think, imagine that we could create that context, that petri dish for humanity, to actually evolve to the point where they can feel like they are doing what they're called to do. That's when we listen to the divine. That's when we become instruments of the divine. That's when we, together, create that larger thing. So, I deeply apologize if there was anything in here that was interpreted as non-inclusive. That's certainly not my intent. And I would like to get your feedback on how we can make that better. Okay, this wasn't what I... Yeah, go ahead.
A very personal question. How did you finance your life travels like you did? It's amazing. I mean, all of us would like to travel and go.
Can I let you in on a secret?
Give me your financial background secret.
Here's a secret. I am actually quite poor. I literally make about $25,000 US dollars a year. And yet, I'm traveling the world. I mean, I've actually become nomadic. I've become location independent. And I've done that consciously because I feel like the rest of my life is about releasing attachment to form. And I think this is something for us all to look at. Is like, where are we attached to form? That could be a body, that could be a house, that could be a job, that could be a partner. It's all wonderful. There's also wonderful things in all of that. But if we're clinging it, if we think, what would happen if that disappeared? And if our life would fall apart, then it's something to consider. And so I'm doing that now with location, and I think the next thing I'm looking at is, could I let go of work? Could I trust the universe enough that if I just do what I'm called to do, that the universe will provide? And I know if I did that with faith, it would work. And I know that when I think about it, some fear comes up. Yeah, I mean, I have Pema, I think I showed pictures of before, I'm putting her through school in college in North Carolina. Like, it's like, if I didn't have any money, then what about Pema? I wouldn't want my choices to impact her or others. But yeah, I mean, there are ways to do it. Well, I'm also very privileged, right? I've lived my life, as you know, connected to many communities, so it's fairly easy for me to go and bop around different communities. I do house sitting where I can. I actually live fairly simply, and I think that's also a goal that I'm continuing. I do splurge with some electronics, just because that connects me to everything. But other than that, I mean, I've had this shirt for 20 years or more. I think it's actually 25 years. What's that? Yeah. So, it can be done. And a lot of people ask that question, and I'm like, it's actually easier than you think. Yeah, I didn't expect this, but
you want to keep doing it?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. So, if you haven't run across Jem Bendel or deep adaptation, more and more people are recognizing, you know what? We're not putting that genie back in the bottle. That we are heading toward a place. He said collapse is inevitable, catastrophe is likely, even extinction is possible. I grant all of that. Yes. And also AI, right? There's lots of ways we could get AI wrong. AI could basically kill us. I mean, it could, or a small group of people could hack into a biolab, use AI and create some virus that could wipe us out, right? It could be corporatized. It's already using an immense amount of environmental resources, right? All of that is absolutely true. What I'm thinking about is, what if we get it right? What if we get it right? And if we don't imagine that, I think the possibilities are less. And so I'm granting all the problems in the world. They're here. I'm not trying to shy away from any of that. All I'm saying is, yes, and what if there's more? What if we're actually here? What if this is actually the transition time of humanity? You all know transition period of birth. That's the time when the mother's cervix moves from like 7 cms to 10 cms, wide enough for the baby to come out. And it's the painful time, right? It's often when the mother is screaming, I can't do it, it's impossible, make it stop. And yet, Monique is a midwife, right? So I've been around birth a lot. And a wise midwife will look at that and say, you know what, it's cool. We're going to go home soon. The baby's going to be nursing in the mother's arms, right? There's something inevitable in that moment as well, even in the midst of that pain. And so it's possible that we are in now the transition phase of humanity. And if you think about it, we've had this worldview, this old story, for millennia, right? And the crises that we're facing now are direct results of that story. So on some level, if you step back, I'm not forgiving, I'm not exempting any of this, right? But if we step back, it's kind of like perfect karma. That we have created the very situation that we are now in an existential crisis of, right? And change at a very deep level tends not to happen except through crisis. Bing, 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 right? To change that level of identity, of who we are, that's a hard thing to change, and it often changes only when it has to. And I suspect, my belief is that the level of change, the level of transformation that is required now it's only going to happen with an existential crisis at that level. Like, we have to actually face our death as a species, as a planet, for us to wake up. Now, it's sad in a way. It would be nice. And there are pockets, right? There are pockets like Findhorn all over the world that are waking up early. But most of the planet is not, and I suspect they will not until they have to. And I'm not saying let's bring it on at all. I'm saying let's try our best to make things better. But we need those lifeboats. We need those lifeboat stories of like, okay, if I'm going to change, what am I going to change into? What's a better worldview? What's a worldview that actually feels enlivening, that we can actually move forward with hope and grace, right? Most people I talk to, that's off the table. That's not even on their radar. They're just seeing the crisis. And so that's why I think places like Findhorn are so important. I don't know how many of you are aware of spiral dynamics. I'm not going to go into the details, but we're in a very green environment here. We're very community-oriented, right? It's something I love about Findhorn. You come here and you just feel a part of everything. We hug trees, we hug each other, right? It's wonderful. There are shadows of every level of consciousness. With this level that is among the Ecovillage world, some of the shadows are, there's a fear of hierarchy, that the king must die, right? And there's also a fear of conflict. There's often an overemphasis on, I wouldn't say overemphasis, that doesn't sound right. I was going to say of emotion. Emotion is important. But sometimes it's like one person can say like, I'm feeling something, and then everything gets sidetracked and we never get back to what we were actually there for, right? I see. So some of this it's okay. Where was I going with all that? Someone remind me where I was.
Let's transition to yellow.
Oh, I remember. So, yeah, so there's a tension, there's a challenge of how we do this at Findhorn, right? Because there's a natural tendency to say, let's get everyone in the room. Let's get everyone's voices. Let's do a big vote. Where do we go next, right? And I'm not saying this is necessarily how it's happening, but there's a resonance to that idea. Yeah, we should all figure this out together, which is great. The challenge is there's a lot of people here, I suspect, I don't know if there are any in the room now, but that are like here, but either we're getting older and we're saying like, look, I've lived my life doing this. I'm not really at a point where I want to start something completely new, and I also want to make sure that we preserve what we have. There's also people who've moved in here and bought houses, and they love it here, right? But they didn't come through Findhorn. They may not have that sense that many of us have had, right? And so my concern is that if we try to bring everyone together and say, what do we all want together? We're going to go from here to here, right? It's going to be a very conservative move. So I'm like, I want to know who's on fire. I want to know who's ready to upend their lives to manifest that vision, that potential that is here now. That's actually one of the reasons why I was suggesting these divine anarchy experiments, because who's going to come to those experiments? It's going to be a lot of young people. A lot of young people that are like, yeah, I could pick a year and you give me room and board. That sounds like pretty good. And what do I do? Anything I want? Damn, I'm in. You know, I think it would actually bring a lot of fresh energy here too. So that was one of the ideas of doing the fishbowl, but maybe there's another way to do it. We can self-identify, or we don't have to at all, but I'm just letting you know that I'm interested in getting those people in a room or having a conversation like, who's on fire? Let me ask you just right now, if you're willing to divulge, who's on fire? Who's saying like, I'm here, I'm ready to make this happen? Okay, but see, and then there's no judgment, right? I mean, because there's lots of good reasons why people can't do that. But I saw maybe half a dozen or 8. Okay, and maybe some little, okay. And it depends. You know, like what do you do? Okay, tell me the better question, Cornelia.
No, I first want to say what I would have said if I'd gotten the microphone earlier. I really chime with you, Daniel, that since 1972, we know that the planet is collapsing. reiterating and regurgitating this message has not made a better world. So I have really jettisoned that. I don't want any more dooms talking. It's just not, it's not that I don't want to hear it. It's not working. So let's just acknowledge it hasn't worked since 1972. Limits of growth was written then. We knew that. Yeah. So I'm really excited about this new messaging. And one of the things that happened to me earlier this year is that I came across Rob Hopkins' new book, How I Fell in Love with the Future.
Yes.
So for me, this phrase, loving a thriving future into being, that's what I'm on fire for.
Yes.
I'm not on fire for sitting on boards, so that's why I'm not putting my hand up.
Ah.
I am totally on fire for loving a thriving future into being.
Yeah.
And I would love to have hands raised for that, and then go further.
Got it.
That's my
okay.
question.
Good. Thomas, let's move ahead just to show the, this, yeah, stop there. Okay, I just want to have this in the background. How many of you haven't seen this before? Okay, okay, a number of you. Very quickly then, this is an amoeba. And amoebas go for resources. They send out these things called pseudopods or fake foots. And when they find a resource, they basically incorporate it in. And there's different aspects of the amoeba, right? And so these kind of map to our roles in change, okay? And I've collapsed these. This is much more complicated. You could look it up, amoeba model of social change. There's a lot thought about, written about this. This is just one little version of it. You have the pioneers. You have these folks out at the edge that are saying, yeah, I'm going to innovate. I'm going to be out there. I'm going to take that risk. I'm going to look crazy, right? And then you have the messy middle. The people who are like, yeah, whatever, you know, if things are going this way, yeah, I'll kind of go that way, right? And then you have the people between them, the supporters or the change agents, the transformers, the bridge builders who say, yeah, I'm not going to be out there, but when it's happening, I want to be there to support. I want to make this happen, right? I'm just not the person who's kind of way out there. And then there's other people. There's the iconoclasts or the laggards or the curmudgeons, and they might even be going the other way. They're like, yeah, this doesn't feel good, you know, I like it the other. And then there's also a lot of people suffering. In the world, in community, individually, right? In the world we know this, all over. From climate change and war, famine, there's lots of suffering happening in the world. And that restricts often people's ability to actually make change. And so the reason why I wanted to show this, the reason why I was looking at a fishbowl is because this is important, that I think change really happens when there is a critical mass. Like if one pioneers, have you ever seen that video where this guy's dancing on a hill? It's like some music festival and he's just dancing like crazy and everyone's kind of looking at him like, dude, we're not dancing here, we're just sitting here, we're looking at you. And then someone else gets up and they start dancing. And then the whole crowd is like, oh, okay, I guess it's okay now. You know? So it's often not the first person that makes the change, it's often the second or the third. They validate. They actually say, it's okay, it's not a crazy thing. I think this is a good idea, right? So, yes, I mean, and think about it in the world, right? Findhorn was a pioneer and in many ways still is. A lot of the things that were pioneered here are just taken for granted in the world, right? And they started here. And so it happened because other people said, yes, I agree to that. So that's why I don't actually know where this stands in the community right now. If there's a critical mass, or could there be a critical mass to do something extraordinary? I don't know. And so I put it out to all of us, how do we figure that out? That was a genuine question. And so I guess also, is this comfortable for people? I mean, I think this is important to talk about. You understand what I was trying to do. We could have a fishbowl. I have mixed feelings about fishbowls. I think they're kind of cool. But on the other hand, I find that conversation doesn't often happen because people say something and then someone else sits in. So maybe this is better. But I also feel uncomfortable being the center here. So I really want it to be a conversation.
Why don't we do the small groups and just get more people to figure out where they're at?
That's a good idea.
And then we can see where we're at.
So let's take at least 10 minutes.
Well, we were going to do a small group in order to prepare for a fishbowl.
Yeah, we were going to do the small group anyway.
10 minutes.
So let's do 10 minutes, get into whatever group feels normal, feels good for you, and talk about what's alive for you right now. Normal? That's abnormal. Go for a group that feels abnormal. The idea of the fishbowl again is to have people speak but through these roles. And I remember it must have been 93 that I first experienced this. Right here, I was sitting right like there. And it was a big community gathering, and we were talking about the ghost figures in the community. And my memory is that some of those ghost figures were the workaholic, right? And then there was another, like the sick member, you know, the person who was always, that couldn't come to things and they were always sick. And I remember sitting there, and the person next to me stood up, and she said, look, I recognize now that I have been in a role, that the community has seen me as the sick one, and I hereby declare that I do not want to be seen in that role anymore. And I swear, it almost felt like I could see these clouds like lift from her shoulders. And she did get a lot better. She had some health issues, but it's that thing, like we often, when people are in a role, they get kind of stuck in that, and other people see them that way, and they want to kind of hold them there. These are not that. These are just things that we can fluidly go in and out. But let me ask a question. How many of you, first of all, have something you'd like to share right now? If I said, who has something to share, raise your hand if you have something you'd like to share. Really? Well, okay, well, have a great afternoon.
In the transition time, we were in such immersed conversations. So
Yeah.
it's hard to get out.
Okay, how would you suggest? Do you want to sing a song?
We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the ones we've been waiting for. Once more. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We work for the earth, we work for each other, family, all, sister and brother. For we are the ones we've been waiting for. 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 This is the time and this is the hour. All together we have the power. This is the time and this is the hour. All together we have the power. For we are the ones we've been waiting for. 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 We are the ones.
Hold on to that.
I was being supported there. Thank you.
So we can do this in other ways. We don't have to do anything. People can just say whatever they want to say. If you like, if there's something you want to say that is clearly through a role, you're welcome to come up and sit here and say, I am sitting in this role as I say this. You can even just name it. Pretend I'm there. Or we can do something completely different. It's Darren. Michael, are you coming down to do something?
Smith.
Oh, Smith. Sorry. I got you confused. You're a little like Michael from my community. This is actually really, really special for me. I hope you would agree that Findhorn, if this is our goal, to really manifest the new story, I don't know of a better thing. I mean, you could call it a brand or what, I don't know if there's a word for that, but point to it, show me. Where would be the thing in the whole world that would be a better catalyst for this happening than Findhorn, right? And so Findhorn will become what it becomes, right? And we're all a part of that. But there's rich soil here. There's deep soil. And I also think there's a deep need of the planet. I want to ask, who feels like they could sit in the pioneer role? Who feels like that energy? Raise your hand. Could I ask you actually to stand up and to look at each other? And for others to look at these people. Here are people who are saying, okay, I'm ready, I'm willing, I'm able, I want to be a part of what this is to become. Yeah? And look at each other, okay? Yes. Maybe, and now, who is willing to support these people? Okay, look at them. maybe one of them is going to say, like, actually, they need help to, like, get them together, to, like, actually talk, right? Like, what are the boundaries? What are the blocks? We don't know all of these, right? Sometimes I sit here and I don't know what it means to be a supporter, honestly, and I wish I could. You know, so Anna, you sit here. Sometimes I wish I could sit here and like really see, like, oh, here are all the details of how to make that work. I have some of that, but I don't have enough of it, right? So there is that. Everything that we need is in this room, is in this community. And then the question is, what do we do? And with that, we will continue tomorrow. Tomorrow, do you want to say anything, Mari? It's about education, but that is.
Suzanne's actually leading it tomorrow.
Oh, Suzanne could say something. Yeah, tonight there's Sacred Dances welcoming us to come in and just dance and be in a different rhythm and mood. And then tomorrow, education.
Yeah, we're going to follow a process that we use in appreciative inquiry to really collect all our wisdom and our aspirations, what we want to do in terms of education. So it's a way that we want to get everyone's voice, as there have been many different voices over the last year, wanting to be heard, having something valuable to say. So we'll do some work in small groups, and then we'll work out a way to bring all of that together in an appreciative inquiry fashion. Thank you.
And tomorrow afternoon is a total shift of energy. We'll have a silent mandala making in here. That'll be an opportunity to come in and out, sit with it, contribute to the mandala. We'll be making one together without instructions, so it's all by divine, whatever it is. Synthesis, actually.
Great. I also want to thank Thomas for all of your help and for staying a little late, and for everyone who made this happen today and for the whole week and for everything. So thank you, and thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Daniel, for the encouragement. And as we say goodbye to each other, it's perfectly possible to hug one or two people.
It's in the realm of possibility.
Do you have to have stuff or do you have to